Thank you. The next item of business is topical questions, and I call Murdo Fraser.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reported comments from the Institute for Fiscal Studies that is, income tax increases on the highest earners may have reduced the revenue raised.
Cabinet Secretary Shona Robson.
The IFS were clear they did not have any definitive evidence of any suggested reduction of revenue raised from the highest earners in Scotland in recent years. The IFS did welcome our work on policy appraisal and evaluation that is being developed as part of our forthcoming tax strategy to be published alongside the budget, which will help ensure we continue to take an evidence-informed approach to taxation policy. The evidence does show that our tax base continues to grow strongly, with RTI PAYE data showing Scotland outperforming the rest of the UK on tax, per head and earnings growth in both 2022-23 and 2023-24. Of course, Scottish income tax policy for 2025-26 will be announced as part of the Scottish Budget on the 4th of December.
Murdo Fraser.
Well, I thank the Cabinet Secretary for her response. I would just quote directly from David Phillips of the Institute for Fiscal Studies, who said increases in the top rate of tax are unlikely to raise much, with evidence from the first of Scotland's reforms in 2018-19 suggesting they may even reduce revenue. Those are his words, not mine. And these warnings from the Institute for Fiscal Studies should be a wake-up call to the SNP. For years, we've warned that continually increasing tax on the highest earners will be counterproductive. The same message has come from Scottish business, and now we hear this warning from the respected and independent Institute for Fiscal Studies. So will the Scottish Government finally listen to all these warnings, put economic growth first in its forthcoming budget and commit to reducing the tax burden on hard-working Scottish families rather than further increasing it?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, let me repeat, the IFS are clear that the uncertainties associated with the behavioural impact of our tax policy are very high indeed. And, of course, it's vital that we understand any behavioural change, which is why, as I said in my previous answer, we've funded HMRC to undertake research on this topic. But if we look at the facts, from the introduction of Scottish income tax in 2017-18, more taxpayers have come to Scotland than have left, with net inflows averaging almost 4,200 per year. And more high-earning taxpayers came to Scotland than left in 2021-22, the latest year for which we have data. And as for Murdo Fraser's last comment about reductions in tax, well, of course, the Scottish Conservatives have to show then where that money would come from. So analysis published alongside the budget shows that a 1p cut to the intermediate rate, which is something that the Tories seem to be pushing, would cost around £172 million. That's money that would not be able to go into public services. So it's all very well to suggest tax cuts, but you also have to then explain the other side of the coin, which is where those cuts would fall.
Murdo Fraser.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for her further response. Of course, she will know, having looked at the figures, that the population of Scotland is growing, but is growing relatively more slowly than the population of the UK as a whole, which suggests that there is an issue there. But would the Cabinet Secretary agree with me that any MSP or even any former First Minister who voted for these crippling and counterproductive tax hikes on higher earners, and who then sets up a private company into which future earnings will be paid, potentially as a means of avoiding those higher taxes they voted for, is guilty of the most outrageous hypocrisy?
Cabinet Secretary.
On Murdo Fraser's point about population growth, of course, that is why this government has argued to have powers over migration, so that we can encourage people to come and live and work in Scotland with the full range of powers to be able to do so. But, as I said in my previous answer, more people are coming to live and work in Scotland, including those who are higher earners. And just let me share with Murdo Fraser the Office for National Statistics low and high pay in the UK 2024, and it shows that the lowest levels of low pay, Scotland has the lowest levels of low pay, second only to London, and the third highest level of high pay after London and the South East. That suggests to me very, very strong earnings performance, and that, of course, is important for economic growth. And as for his last question, I'm not going to comment on anybody's individual circumstances or position on such matters.
I call Audrey Nicholl.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. As already referenced, HMRC research has indicated that across all tax bands in 2021 to 22, more taxpayers chose Scotland as their home than left. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree that this does highlight that Scotland is an attractive place for people to live and work, whilst the SNP Scottish Government's progressive approach to taxation continues to raise an additional £1.5 billion to support vital public services by asking those who earn more to contribute more?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, that's absolutely right. This latest research shows that since the introduction of Scottish income tax in 2017-18, net flows to Scotland have averaged almost 4,200 per year, more people coming to Scotland. Our income tax policy protects the majority of households in Scotland while supporting investment in our public services, with the SFC having estimated that our income tax policy choices since devolution will raise an additional £1.5 billion in 2024 compared to if we'd matched UK Government policy. That is money at risk with those who advocate tax cuts. And of course, that money supports a wide range of social contracts, with the people of Scotland benefiting from a wide range of services and social security payments that are not provided anywhere else in the UK, including, of course, our flagship Scottish Child Payment, free prescriptions and free higher education.
Willie Rennie.
I'm sure the Minister agrees that setting tax rates is a delicate balance. So, taking into account all the tax rises in recent years at a UK level and a Scottish level, does she believe in principle that there is further tolerance and capacity for further tax rises here?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, obviously, I will set out the detail of the tax policy on the 4th of December, and of course will publish the tax strategy alongside that. What I can say to Willie Rennie, though, is it is a delicate balance, and in coming to the judgments that we will come to, we will look at everything in the round, including the steps taken so far by this government on tax, including the actions taken elsewhere in the round. So these are decisions that are taken very, very carefully indeed. And what I want to make sure is that in the position that we land is to make sure that a majority of taxpayers in Scotland still continue to pay less than elsewhere in these islands.
Craig Hoy.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Minister is sounding complacent on this issue because it is becoming increasingly clear that the Scottish Government's high tax policies risk undermining Scotland's tax take. Given that formal studies into the behavioural impact of tax changes affecting high earners in particular will only reveal the problem after the damage has been done, will the Government commit to developing rapid indicators to track the impact of its tax policies? And specifically, will it adopt the recommendations from the IFS and commit to gathering and publishing monthly figures based on PAYE information tax submissions and release anonymised details of taxpayer address changes so as to provide real-time information on the effects of the Government's decisions on tax?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, there is no complacency, but likewise I would expect members to look at the evidence. So the evidence shows that our tax base continues to grow strongly, with RTI PAYE data showing Scotland outperforming the rest of the UK on tax per head and earnings growth in both 2022-23 and 2023-24. Now, it may not be what members on the Conservative benches want to hear, but those are the facts. Now, when it comes to HMRC, I can say to Craig Hoy, that is, we have engaged with a lot of detailed work with HMRC, because we want to make sure that we monitor the data, including that of behavioural impact. But the point is, these figures of earnings growth show a very, very strong base, and that is something I would have thought would have been welcomed across this chamber.
And Fergus Ewing.
Also, the Cabinet Secretary argues that those who have the broadest shoulders in Scotland, the highest incomes, should pay more tax. Is she concerned, therefore, that the overall tax revenue from income tax is being reduced by some people, and I mention no names, who choose to set up a limited company, who then appear able to insert into that company's income from, for example, book royalties or TV appearances, and thereby reduce their liability to income tax and the amount of money for Scottish public services? So, does she deprecate the use of that device?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, can I say to Fergus Ewing that our approach to tax is founded on core principles which ensure that everyone pays their fair share of tax, and we support very strong measures to tackle tax avoidance and evasion. We continue to work with HMRC through our service level agreement to ensure that Scottish income tax is collected efficiently and reliably. And to date, there has been no evidence that Scottish taxpayers have been more likely to engage in non-compliant behaviour than in the rest of the UK. And we continue to closely monitor this with HMRC.
Thank you. That concludes topical questions. I'll allow a moment or two for front benches to organise for the next item.